So I'm here today to talk about implementing technology and why is that important to us as a contractor, as a developer, as a builder. What we realize is we provide a lot of services to our clients, and we want to make sure that we give them the best possible service that we can, no matter when they come into the cycle. Not every project is developed from the beginning with our development group. Not every project is built by us, but people will come in and out of the cycle. And we feel technology is a way for us to be able to hand that off and give them the best possible experience no matter where they come in on that cycle. So how many of you have seen this graph before? One? Okay, well, it's good. How many of you can see it now? Okay, so let me try and explain it to you as if you can see it. What's important are the colored lines that you can see. So that uptick blue line that you're seeing, what's left over there, is actually the increase in productivity of the non-farm industry, manufacturing, production, things like that. All those lines down the bottom are construction. We have not gotten any better since the 1950s. We've been trying to find ways to get better, but we've been very unsuccessful. And so this has kind of presented us with a dilemma on how we are going to get better. And usually what happens when you are presented with a dilemma is you try to innovate, right? So if any of you have read Malcolm Gladwell's The Tipping Point or The Innovator's Dilemma, you realize that some of the best innovations and the best ideas come from a struggle. They come from a place where somebody has a problem that we need to fix. So the McKinsey & Company did a report called the Construction Productivity Imperative, which dove deeper into why it was that we weren't getting more effective, why we weren't getting more productive. And some of the things that they found was we were trying, but we weren't really getting where we needed to be and focusing on what we needed to be. Recently, there was a CEO Tech Forum in Chicago, Illinois, which they presented the idea of disruption is coming. Something needs to change in the industry, and it's going to change. So it's coming, guys. It's not a bad word, but it's going to be something that's going to change the way that we do things. In a follow-up article to that event, mechanical firms were encouraged to embrace this disruption, to not run away from it, not be scared of it, but to grab hold and own it, and really make a difference in how they were running their business and get better at what they do. So where does technology really stand today? And this is a graph. If you could read it better, it's okay, but basically it's showing the effective technology and what we think of it, of the different types of technology. From the far left, it's when the technology first comes out. Then this kind of feeling of, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. This is going to be the best thing since sliced bread. And I kind of relate this to when everybody went out and first bought their Apple Watch. Right? Everybody was like, God, this is going to be awesome. Then we kind of make a swing down into what's called the trough of disillusionment, right? Oh man, this is good, but it's a $400 watch that tells me time, right? Then you kind of gradually slope up from there and realize, you know what, it is pretty good. It keeps me organized, it tracks my steps. If you take it for what it is, it's pretty good. And then we reach a plateau, and that's that plateau of productivity. And really where the technology is not getting any better, all we can do to improve it is to try and use it in better ways. So what I wanted to point out is where on this curve some common technologies that probably a lot of you are familiar with are today. The first one being laser scanning. How many people here have dealt with laser scanning in some way, shape, or form? Okay, about half the room, maybe a little bit more. So really laser scanning, came out in 2014. Laser scanning is kind of close to that plateau. Scanners are not really getting much better. People are adopting them. They're pretty well accepted in the industry. People understand the process. So the only thing we can do to really make them any better at this point is maybe improve the software. Improve the process on how we use them. Improve the people that are using them. The technology doesn't really have much more to grow. Move a little bit back down that graph, and we'll come to virtual reality. Okay, so VR goggles, Oculus, HTC Vive, your Samsung VR gear. So people probably think this is a really, really new technology, but it's been around for quite a while. And it's really gone through that heightened cycle, and it's really on its approach up to kind of getting to that plateau again. We're really figuring out how we can use it. Big healthcare uses a lot right now, moving into residential, but we're still trying to figure out how we can get the most productivity out of it. Moving back a little bit is augmented reality. How many Pokemon Go fans do we have in here? We got a couple, all right? So it's all the big news right now, right? But augmented reality is, everybody thinks it's so cool. What kind of effects is this going to have on the industry? I just saw an article today that was talking about how the construction industry could learn from Pokemon Go, and how real estate could learn from Pokemon Go. But I think we're kind of on that slide down, right? We're kind of figuring out that AR is great, but what can we really do with it to make it work? Move back up to the top of that, we're kind of back to our Apple Watch, right? Apple Watch sales are down 50% this year because we are falling into that trough of disillusionment. It was the cool new thing, everybody got in line to buy one. Now we're all trying to figure out what we can do with it. We're kind of falling down that scale. And then even further back than that, there's some other technologies that are kind of still on that upswing. Things like robotics. If anybody's seen, there's actually a tool now. It's called the Zero G. What it allows you to do is basically lift any tool as if it was weightless. So think of that road worker who's lifting a jackhammer. He now no longer has to lift a 125-pound jackhammer. It feels like he's lifting a pencil. So that is going to change ergonomics. It's going to change how we work, and it's going to make productivity spike. Excuse me. So the World Economic Forum did a study on construction, and they stated that basically our industry is going to be shaped by technology. We need to find the breakthrough, and it's coming. And this graph here is showing the likelihood of these technology adoptions, and across the bottom is how impactful they will be on our industry. So the things that are in the top right-hand corner are going to be the most impactful and are most likely to be implemented, but they're probably almost also the hardest. So think of integrated BIM. All of us working on one model, in one space, building directly from that model, utilizing that model to the greatest extent possible. We realize there's a huge potential there. It's going to be hard to get there, we're working our way there, but it's going to happen, and it's going to have a huge impact on our industry. Another one is real-time collaboration. And this, I'm not even sure this is a technological problem. This is how people interact. But the likelihood of it happening is very high, and it's going to have a huge impact on our industry. So we're pushing towards that more and more. Things like drones, which really are pretty easy to implement. I mean, anybody can go down to Best Buy and buy a Phantom 4 for $1,500. In a couple of weeks, you'll be able to get your 107 exemption and fly around any job site you want. Pretty easy level of implementation. But there's limits to what you can do with it, right? You can take photography, you can get some 3D scans out of it maybe. But the impact that it's going to have on our industry, although is pretty hyped up pretty high right now, it's not going to be nearly as great as an integrated BIM or more collaboration. So how does adoption impact our ROI? Excuse me. So we all think that when we go to adopt a new piece of technology, that it's going to be easy, right? We're going to say one day, you know what, guys, we're all going to move to Revit. And we're all going to get better, and in 6 months, we're going to be a Revit shop. We're not going to miss a step. We're going to be super efficient. We're going to make higher fees. And this is what I like to call the unicorn. Doesn't exist. We search for this mythical creature. We think it's out there. People even say that they've seen it, but it doesn't really exist. What we do realize is that 70% of change efforts actually fail. But why do they fail? Well, because the 30% that do succeed recognize there's going to be a dip in productivity. You realize that any change is going to come with learning. It's not an easy process. That's why they call it change. It's not supposed to be easy. But they hang in there, and they press on. And then they start to realize the potential of that ROI, and they start to gain from it. And they may never reach that desired state, that super productivity mode, but what they do get is close to 70-80% of it, and they've done a good implementation. Now, the people who do fail, they give up. They don't hang in there as they see that dip in productivity, and they start to fade off, they give up, and we have to avoid this. Recently, I was at a job site talking to a superintendent, and he started to tell me, you know what, I'm about ready to give up on this BIM thing. I was like, what's the matter, Mike? Why do you want to give up on this? He's like, I don't understand it. Nobody's talking to me. I don't get what's going on. I don't know if the things are done. I said, Mike, what can I do to help? He's like, well, I need to know where we are. I said, okay, you will know where we are. I'm going to give you a matrix every week. I'm going to let you know where we are. What else can I do? Well, I can't get into the software. Okay, well, let me show you how to get into it. Let me walk you through it. And it's my job to make sure that dip doesn't stay level, that I turn him and force him back up and give him some wins so that he gains faith back into it, and we push him into the 30% from the 70%. But we all know the struggle is real. And if you didn't figure it out, that's supposed to be me by now. It's not easy, right? But how can we change it? How can we make it better? Well, we need to do that by changing the way that we address change. We need to focus on the people. The people are what makes this work. In that same World Economic Forum presentation or paper, they talked about the areas of transformation in our industry. And the number one thing that we felt we could transform and that would make the biggest difference, people. Number two, adoption of new technology. And the last one, which is really just people again, collaboration, how we work together. So if we really change our people, we've got the top 2 out of 3 things that we really feel can transform the way that we work together as an industry. Now they also quoted the senior VP or vice president at Skanska and saying, our business is really about people. You can have equipment, you can have financial resources, but to truly succeed in a business like ours, it's really about having the right people in the right places. My boss, who's I'm lucky enough is sitting here, so don't heckle me too bad later, always says to me that this business would be easy if it wasn't for the people. And I think he's right? I mean, if it was just robots doing it, we'd have an easy business. But we have to deal with people. We have to deal with personalities. We have to deal with different personalities. It's about connecting and working together. So let's change the way we think about technology. Let's break it down a little bit. Really, technology is what? It's a tool. It's no different than a nail gun compared to a hammer. It's just a new tool that we need to implement. And what do we need for that tool? Well, we need people. The tool's only as good as the operator. So you can take a guy fresh out of school, slap him in front of a computer, give him Revit, and guarantee you he can model you something. Doesn't mean it's going to be good, but he can model you something. So you need to put the right people behind it. You need to put the people who understand how to model, who understand how to build with those tools. And then lastly, you've got to put them in a process that is effective and allows them to be effective. So don't hamstring them. Don't wrap them up in red tape. Give them the opportunity to be effective with a good process. We also need to respect that everybody has a different perspective. Executives, they're looking for return on investment. They're looking for reliable outcomes. They want to see the same profit margins on every project, right? IT guys, or CTOs, or IT guys, they want to have something standardized, something that they can roll out repeatedly that's easy to maintain. Now our end users and our project operations guys, all they really want, something to make their life easier, something that's easy to use, okay? So if each one of us can understand how the other one looks at our problem, our new technology, our new process, we'll have a better level of respect for each other and be able to work together to meet all of those goals. So from there, we really need to take a people-first approach. Okay? We start out by doing this in kind of what we call an A3 cycle. And assess. Start by figuring out what is it that you do now? How do you do the things that you do now? Then we sit down and think about what the difficulties we have and how do we align to make sure that we're working together to get better. Then finally, we can finally take that step forward together. We can make progress. We can advance and move into new technology and move into a higher level of productivity together. And we do that by building trust and transparency. It doesn't work without it. I need to trust my architect needs to trust his engineer, and the owner needs to trust the entire team. we don't have trust amongst us, then the process fails. So building up that trust amongst the group is extremely important. So how do we do that? Well, we start by fostering bidirectional mentorship. And what does that mean? Well, what that really means is let's pair the people who know the technology with the people who know how to build. Let them learn from each other. In a recent blog post, video, article, not sure what you call it, but from Sasha Reed from Bluebeam, you guys might know her. She posted these 4 quotes, which I thought were really, really interesting. 80% of executives agree that sharing across individuals and roles is crucial for growth. So having people that are willing to share their knowledge, better understand each other's jobs and work together, and only 25% of us are doing it. It's really unfortunate. 66% of the workforce is Gen X or Boomers. By 2020, that number will be almost less than 50%. Okay? Our generation is aging and changing, so we need to educate our younger workers. Retention rates at companies are 20% higher for people who are in a mentorship program. Those who have mentors, those have people that they're learning from, who are giving them their industry knowledge and hopefully returning some of that knowledge with something that they may have to offer. And then 78% of millennials, and I know millennials sometimes people make it sound like a bad word. I am one, kind of on the cusp, but they say that working with technology they like, it makes them more effective at their job. Okay? Allow them to try and be involved in the process of selecting the technology that works for them so that they can be more effective. Another key point is to define key performance indicators. Something to measure, right? You have to have a goal. And we need to work together to determine that goal. So, I stole this from Mortensen. This is their metrics for implementing Procore, project management solution. And if you notice, the 3 goals that they had were reduce the time to productivity, reduce the learning time, reduce that dip in the curve of productivity by 75%, reduce our overprocessing, okay, by an hour per day. So basically cut out an hour worth of my work every day. And then dramatically improve team member and customer experience. So there's one thing that all 3 of those goals have in common. They all focus on your people. They focus on improving that partnership and that experience. They focus on reducing the amount of work that we have to do. And they focus on how quickly we can learn. I think these are great examples of goals that we can set to make sure that we'll be effective with our technology implementation. So at some point we have to plan what exactly it is we're going to do. And the reason that that metric slide comes before the process slide is because I have to figure out where I want to go before I can plan. I need to have that end in mind when I do my planning. And by doing that, I can then kind of work backwards and figure out where to start. So this is the process flow map. Probably many of you have seen these before. But what's really important about these is we define the who. Who's going to do the work? Who is actually going to have to do some of these tasks? Then we define what they're going to do. Okay? What is the task that we need you to do? And then lastly, when are we going to do it? What's really important about this is that everybody knows what their role is and what their job is and how they interact with the other people on the chart. They know who's before them, they know who's after them. They know who they have to collaborate with, and then when they're going to have to collaborate with them. And this is important to technology implementation because often it fails because of missed handoffs. So in order to learn as much as we can, we really have to measure. We have to talk about metrics. And this is a lot more impressive than you can read. But basically, this is a dashboard. I stole this one from Procore too, just because I'm going through a Procore implementation and I've just seen all these things recently, so they fit in nicely. But they're literally tracking simple things that we can track. Things like, how many users came into the system today? What are the top 3 tools that they used? How long were they in the system? Are they using the tools that were the 3 goals that we set? You know, Procore does a good job of laying out an implementation plan with you, and they set what are the 3 modules that are most important for your people to use. So very quickly we could measure, if we expected people to use things like daily reports, budget, and punch list, and the 3 things people were in most were subcontracts, photos, and I don't know, something else, then probably we either need some more training, we need to refocus them on what's really it is that we want them to do, and if they're spending too much time in the system, it probably means that they're not working in it effectively. And we can work with them to identify, hey, listen, you might need some more training on this. Let's send out an email blast to everybody because nobody seems to be using the daily reporting tool and we think it's really easy. Let's take a look at our training material and figure out, is it really working for everyone? So, what does success look like? Well, to me, adoption of the technology is really the success. And a lot of us, think that success looks like this straight line. We start at point A, we end at point B, and we get there. But in reality, it's this journey. It's a journey that we take together. And as long as we get to the end of the road and we learn together and we work through it together, that's what's really important. So we do this by starting to engage our people. Engage our people early in the process. Let them help make the decision on what the new technology is. Let them make recommendations. Make sure that the users that are most important to your company and the future of your company have an opportunity to voice what they like or don't like. Utilize that bidirectional mentorship. Let them learn from each other. Let them mentor each other. Everybody has something to offer. We talk about the story of the forklift operator who may be an engineer in another country, or if any of you watch Big Bang Theory, if you've ever seen the episode with Sheldon, where he's sitting on the physics pole team, and one of the guys shouts out the answer to him, and he refuses to take it, and he goes, I'm not going to listen to you, you're just the janitor. So the announcer goes, well, you should have listened to him, he was right. And he turns to me and goes, I may be janitor here, but in the former Soviet Union, I am astrophysicist. That's my worst Russian impression, but that's best I can do. But it's important to understand people's perspectives and where they come from and what we can learn from that. And everybody has something to offer. What gets measured gets done. Okay? If you don't measure it, nobody's going to do it. And if we can measure it, we can learn from it. And that's an opportunity for us to change the way that we implement and pivot along the way. And then lastly, focus on solutions that support your process. You don't need to find the only solution that works with your process. Your process may need to be tweaked. But find things that work for your people and work with the process that you may have in place. You may have to adapt them to work together, but you shouldn't be throwing the baby out of the bathroom. So at the end of the day, our number one priority is to work with our people and help them understand the change that is coming and support them throughout that. And we do that throughout the process of this. And it really can be successful. And the adoption of that new technology is what really makes it successful. So thank you guys very much. Hopefully I didn't take up too long. We've got plenty of time left to drink, which is important.